Welcome to the deep dive. Sometimes we focus on the huge dinosaurs, but what about the smaller
The
ones?
ones maybe hiding in the undergrowth.
Exactly. So today we're going back, way back, about 125 million years, early Cretaceous.
Specifically, the Isle of Wight in England.
Right. And we're digging into a fascinating little creature called Aristosuchus. We've got the paleontological records, the scientific descriptions.
All the pieces we need.
And our mission, really, is to unpack what made this dinosaur tick. What was it like?
It's like assembling a really old, very delicate jigsaw puzzle. Every fragment tells a part of the story.
Okay, so let's get started. When it was first found, described back in 1876 by Richard Owen, it wasn't actually called Aristosuchus then, was it?
No, not at first. Owen originally put it in an existing genus, Poecilopleuron.
Poecilopleuron.
Yeah, and he named the species Poecilopleuron pusillus.
Pusillus. That means something specific, doesn't it?
It does. It's Latin for small. So right from the start, its size was a key feature.
A small Poecilopleuron. Okay, so why the change? Why Aristosuchus?
Well, that came about a decade later, 1887. Harry Govier Seeley. He looked at the fossils again.
And saw something different.
He recognized features distinct enough to say, hang on, this needs its own genus. And that's when he coined Aristosuchus.
For Aristosuchus. It sounds quite grand, actually. The name itself has Greek roots.
It does, yeah, it's a combination. Aristos, meaning things like bravest, best, or noblest,
Okay.
and Suchus, which interestingly is the ancient Greek term for Sobek.
The Egyptian crocodile god.
That's the one. So you get this sort of noblest crocodile vibe, even though it's a dinosaur, maybe suggesting it was particularly well-formed or significant despite its size.
Noblest crocodile dinosaur. I like that. Now, there was a bit of a complication, wasn't there? Something about another dinosaur.
Ah, yes, Calamus owini.
Right. What was the issue there? Some confusion.
Exactly. For a while, some paleontologists thought the fossils Owen used for his Pusillus might actually be the same
The
fossils.
same ones.
The same ones that Reverend William Fox had already named Calamus owini back in 1866. So potentially two names for the same animal.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a recipe for confusion. How did they sort that out?
It really came down to the work of David Nash, mostly in the late 90s, early 2000s.
What did he do?
He went back to the original descriptions, even looked at correspondence between Owen and Fox.
Old letters.
Yeah, and he found key differences in how they described the bones. Discrepancies that showed they were, in fact, looking at two different sets of fossils.
So they were separate animals all along.
Correct. Nadish's work confirmed Aristosuchus was its own distinct dinosaur, separate from Calamus.
Okay, mystery solved. So let's focus on Aristosuchus itself. You described it as a small Coelurosaurian dinosaur. What does Coelurosaurian tell us?
Well, think theropods, the mostly meat-eating dinosaurs that walked on two legs. Coelurosaurs are a big group within the theropods. And they're actually more closely related to modern birds than, say, big predators like Allosaurus. They were often lightly built, maybe agile. Many had bird-like features like hollow bones.
Hollow bones. Interesting. So Aristosuchus fits that mold. Bipedal, walking on two legs.
Definitely bipedal. That's typical for theropods. And being a carnivore, those legs were probably pretty important for, chasing things down.
And small. How small are we actually talking? There seem to be a couple of different ideas on size.
Yeah, the most common estimate puts it around 2 meters long, about 6.5 feet.
Okay, so not tiny, but small for a dinosaur.
Right. Weight-wise, maybe around 30 kilograms. That's about 66 pounds.
But there's another smaller estimate.
There is. Gregory S. Paul, a well-known paleontologist, suggested it might have been much lighter, maybe only 7 kilograms, like 15 pounds.
Wow, that's a big difference. 15 pounds versus 66.
It is.
Yeah.
It highlights how interpreting size from incomplete fossils can be tricky. But either way, definitely on the smaller end of the dinosaur scale.
What bones do we actually have? What gives us these clues?
The main fossils, the holotype, include a sacrum that's fused vertebrae from the hip area, a pubis bone, also from the hip, a femur, the thigh bone, and a few other vertebrae.
And the femur, the thigh bone, has some specific features mentioned.
It does, really interesting ones. It has what's described as a wing-like anterior trochanter.
A wing-like. What's a trochanter again?
It's a ridge or projection on the bone where muscles attach. So this one at the front of the femur was apparently quite broad, wing-shaped.
What might that mean, functionally?
Well, a larger surface area could mean stronger muscle attachments, perhaps for powerful thigh muscles, suggesting maybe agility, or a specific kind of leg movement.
Interesting. And there was another feature on the femur.
Yes, The fourth trochanter, another muscle attachment point further down the shaft, was markedly reduced.
Reduced, so less prominent.
Exactly. And changes in the fourth trochanter are often linked to changes in tail muscles and how they interact with the legs for balance and movement. It hints at its overall locomotion style.
So these subtle bone features tell a story about how it moved.
Potentially, yes. They're like little clues to its biomechanics.
And wasn't there something about claws found nearby?
Yes. Two ungulate phalanges, the very end bones of the digits, the bits that support the claw sheath.
Found near the main Aristosuchus fossils.
In the vicinity, yes. We can't be 100% sure they belong to the same animal.
Right, association isn't proof.
Exactly. But it raises the possibility that Aristosuchus might have had fairly long claws, maybe on its hands or feet.
Long claws on a small, potentially agile meat eater, starting to get a clearer picture.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk about where it fits in the grand scheme, its classification.
Right, the family tree. Based on Naish's work again, and others, Aristosuchus is placed within the family Compsognathidae.
Compsognathidae, like Compsognathus itself.
Exactly like Compsognathus, that's the namesake.
What defines that family? What makes Aristosuchus a compsognathid?
Generally, Compsognathids were small, lightly built theropods, often quite slender. Many had long lower legs relative to their thighs,
Suggesting speed.
very likely suggesting they were pretty fast runners. That fits the picture of a small, agile predator. So Aristosuchus seems to share that general body plan.
Okay, so let's try and summarize. We've got Aristosuchus cucilis, started life, scientifically speaking, as Poikilopleuron.
Then got its own rather grand name,
We cleared up the confusion with Calamus
thanks to careful detective work.
It's a small bipedal carnivore from the early Cretaceous Isle of Wight,
Probably quite light, maybe fast,
with those interesting features on its femur, the wing-like trochanter,
and the reduced fourth trochanter.
possibly long claws, and it fits neatly into the Compsognathidae family.
Precisely. It's a great example of how even dinosaurs, known from relatively few bones, can teach us a lot about diversity and evolution back then.
Absolutely. It really makes you think about that whole ecosystem on the Isle of Wight 125 million years ago. All the different players, big and small. Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener. Thinking about Aristosuchus, its small size, those potential bird-like links, its compsognathid features,
Yeah.
what specific niche do you think it occupied? What was its day-to-day life like amongst the other dinosaurs?
And that wing-like structure on its femur.
Yeah.
What could that really tell us about how it moved? Was it just fast? Or was there something more subtle about its agility? Lots to ponder about these incredible ancient animals.